Carpal tunnel syndrome is one type of injury that can and often is sustained in a car accident by a driver. As a driver, you tend to tighten your whole body up and you tend to tighten your legs and hands up when you're in an accident, or even when you just anticipate being hit, when you see how a collision is coming. This is our defense mechanism. We tend to create this defensive posture for ourselves by hanging onto the steering wheel as hard as we can in an accident. However, when we do this, the force of the impact, the force of the collision, directly translates from a steering wheel into that strong impact on our wrists. And the tighter, the stronger you hold on to your steering wheel at the time of the impact, the harder that impact will be on your wrists. And our wrists are relatively gentle and fragile parts of our body, so it doesn't necessarily take that much force to cause a wrist injury in a car accident. Therefore, many drivers in this type of situation complain shortly after the accident that they have numbness in their wrists, they have tingling in their fingers, and some other symptoms which are common for carpal tunnel syndrome. Now, the insurance company will try to argue that it's possible that you had carpal tunnel syndrome, or at least related symptoms and related pain in your wrists before the accident because of your work. Maybe you type a lot, maybe you do some other things with your hands that might have contributed to your condition. However, a legitimate argument can still be made in this type of accident where it's clear that you've been hanging onto the steering wheel very hard and the impact affected your wrists. In this type of accident, a legitimate argument can be made that that accident either caused your carpal tunnel syndrome or aggravated a previously known but more mild carpal tunnel condition. And this should greatly enhance, or at least somewhat enhance, the settlement value or the award value of your injury case. In this type of situation, when you're trying to prove that the carpal tunnel syndrome was in whole or in part caused by an accident, it really helps to have X-rays or MRIs of your wrists from before the accident. However, very rarely do people randomly have MRI or X-ray images of their wrists if they have never been injured. So in the ideal world, you would have this type of evidence to show, look, I didn't have anything in my wrists before the accident, and look at my wrists, look at the MRI image of my wrists after. Clearly there is a difference, and therefore the accident is the one that caused the injury. If you don't have that, a couple of other things can work in your favor. First, as soon as you feel that kind of numbness in your wrists, you should go and have the MRI image done sooner than later after the accident. Why? If you wait for 6 months, if you wait for a year, the insurance company is going to say, look, a lot of other things could have happened with your wrist after the accident that could have caused this injury or this carpal tunnel syndrome. Maybe you fell somewhere, maybe you were playing basketball or volleyball, maybe you punched someone, whatever. You could have done a million things that could have caused that wrist injury. So that's tip number one. Get the MRI done if you feel these symptoms as soon as possible to eliminate that argument. And the second part that you should bring to the insurance company's attention or to your attorney's attention that should help you prove the connection between the carpal tunnel syndrome and the accident is the fact that maybe your job now or your job for the past 10, 15, 20 years did not involve that much typing. We all type a little bit, that's part of all of our jobs, but unless you're a legal secretary or unless you're some kind of word processor that types away every day, all day, generally the chances of you developing carpal tunnel syndrome are relatively low, and they're lower for men statistically than for women. So if you're not a big typist, and if you haven't been a huge typist over the past 10, 15, 20 years, you should definitely use that as an argument that chances are that it's more likely that the accident caused your symptoms and your carpal tunnel syndrome rather than some other event or some other factor. Thank you.